Good morning, and we are live back here at the home church. Hopefully, we're having internet issues here at the church, so I'm doing this via cell phone. Can't go live on locals, unfortunately, but I am recording it to be able to do what I do to upload there to Rumble and YouTube and everywhere else. So, pardon me. Yeah, the Facebook's going to go in and out probably. Don't get very strong cell phone signal, and it fluctuates between 5G and 4G. So, pardon me. So, anyways, yeah, I'm hiccuping breakfast. Fourth Sunday of the month. Every month we do Brotherhood breakfast, unless we decide to do something different. Because of whatever holiday or something. But generally speaking, fourth Sunday of every month, men, if you're looking for some food, if you're looking for some fellowship, if you're looking for place to hang out Sunday mornings, come check us out. 8:30 on the fourth Sunday of every month, we get together, have breakfast, and we talk about God. So it's a good time, good discussions, and a good group of faithful men here in the church, just trying to figure out how to be better Christians, how to be better men, better leaders in the church. So come and check that out. Join us on the fourth Sunday of every month. So continuing on with the Psalms, we're on Psalm number 3. And as I said last time, this is, there's Psalms that can be directly attributed to a specific event. And in this case, that's what we have here in Psalm 3. Now, you might see a difference depending on what version of the Bible you're reading, where verse 1, there's a separation sometimes. So when there's a phrase talking about a Psalm of David when he fled from his son, right? So that phrase should be at the top of everybody's Psalm 3. Now, some versions basically go back, like the Young's Literal Translation, some of the older ones, is going to have that as part of verse 1. English Standard Version does not have it, but all the commentaries, everything I've looked at just to verify that this is about this situation lines up. Everybody says this is about David fleeing from his son, Absalom. So, all right. So Psalm 3, starting in verse 1, starting at the top of the line, a Psalm of David when he fled from his son. Verse 1, O Lord, how many are my foes? Many are rising against me. Verse 2, many are saying, of my soul there is no salvation for him in God. Now, you see this word Selah. It means rest, and more than likely it is a musical term. You can do your own research and look that up, but it's a pause. Like I said, these are poems and these are songs. Generally speaking, this is the Hebrews hymn book, right? So, verse 3, but you, O Lord, are a shield about my glory, a shield about me, my glory, and the lifter of my head. I cried aloud to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy hill. Selah. I lay down and slept. I woke again, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of many thousands of people who have set themselves against me all around. Verse 7, arise, O Lord, save me, O my God, for you strike all my enemies on the cheek. You break the teeth of the wicked. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessing be on your people. Selah, right? So, this is linked back to 2 Samuel It actually goes back to 13, but they link it directly to 15. And so if you go back to 2 Samuel 13, now we all know that David had issues with sexual sin. And unfortunately, that did end up transferring to his children. So he had a son named Amnon who fell in love with his sister Tamar. And he couldn't resist. He couldn't, and he went and raped her basically. She was being preserved for marriage. That's what you're supposed to do. She wasn't going to be married to him because they're brother and sister. And yeah, so it was really messed up. So Amnon's not a good guy. Well, Absalom finds out that Amnon does this, so Absalom stages a little event to convince David, their father, to let him take them all out of this field, and he goes and he kills Amnon. So Absalom kills Amnon. And Absalom, knowing that he had killed somebody, flees. It's like what Moses did, right, when he killed the Egyptian guard. Now, this is not anything that God's going to use for good reasons, but, so he knows he did wrong by killing his brother. So he flees to a place called Geshur. Of course, David's upset by the whole thing. Somebody lies and tells him, "Oh, all of your sons are dead." No, just Amnon was killed by Absalom. And so Absalom's hiding out until such time as things die down where he can come back. Well, then eventually he's able to come back to Jerusalem. And he spends a couple years in Jerusalem where David never goes to go see him. So all this is creating this situation where when you get up to 2 Samuel 15, you find out that Absalom begins to stage a coup. He starts doing things to try and convince the people that David's not a man of the people. He's not a good king. He's doing all this stuff to try and subvert and supplant David, and so that Absalom's able to take the throne. And that's what we lead up to. So Absalom builds up an army of people, and he goes after David, and that's where we are. It's when Absalom actually gets David to run away. You see in 2 Samuel 15, verse 13, and he says, "And a messenger came to David, saying, 'The hearts of the men of Israel have gone after Absalom.' Then David said to all his servants who were with him at Jerusalem, 'Arise, and let us flee, or else there will be no escape for us from Absalom. Go quickly, lest he overtake us, quickly, lest he and bring down ruin on us, and strike the city with the edge of the sword.'" So the king and all his servants, they leave, they flee, they run, right? So, and that's when this is being written now. If you remember back to before David became king, when he was anointed, and when he had all these opportunities, when Saul was chasing him and trying to kill him, right? David was God's anointed to be the next king. At this point, he's still the one to be king. It's not meant for him to die. Certainly not at the hand of Absalom. And God is still with him, despite all the issues and all the troubles and whatnot. Because as we like to say today, David was a man after God's own heart, because he would repent and get right. And so this is, years later after the whole Bathsheba incident. And so here's Absalom staging this coup. David doesn't want to have a big old bloody mess and a big old giant battle. And he gets his servants, and they flee the castle. They leave Jerusalem, and they go and they travel around a bit. And then when you get to 2 Samuel 18, somebody kills Absalom. And then in 2 Samuel 19, David returns to Jerusalem, takes his place back on the throne. and etc., etc. It's a whole lot of intrigue. If you really want, oh, the Bible's so boring. No, go back and read Kings and Chronicles and Samuel and First, Second Samuel and see it's not boring at all. There's a lot of just weird stuff, political intrigue and whatnot. But David writes this psalm because of that situation. So now this is not like a prayerful psalm. It is a prayerful psalm, but it's not like it doesn't have that same prayer pattern that the Lord's Supper or the Lord's Prayer has, that Jesus gives us. But you can see that there is a pattern here, and a lot of the Psalms come close to this. But verses 1 and 2, David is complaining. Right? He's going to God and he's saying, hey, look, all these people are coming against me. Oh, what do we do? What's going on here? Oh my goodness, God, I need help. That's what he's saying here, right? Verse 1 and 2, he's complaining to God. I have this problem. I need your help. It's, oh Lord, how many are my foes? Many are rising against me. So he doesn't even know exactly how many people are trying to come after him. He does know that Absalom is leading the charge, but he's got this big enough army to get attention, basically. And so, anyways, but when you get to verse 3, and we do that. We complain, and we have to vent, right? We got to vent our frustrations, and David's doing it. He's venting his frustrations. And verse 3, but you, O Lord, so he remembers, he confides in God, that he remembers that God is the one who has always looked out for him and has always cared for him and carried him through all his problems, right? So, but you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory. God is his glory. And the lifter of my head. So the fact that he can rely on God, the fact that he can take things to God and that God is there for him, helps him keep his head high. I mean, think about that. When you are down, or when you're struggling, and when you're having issues and you're pushing back or you're fighting, you're doing whatever you're doing, when you know you have support, you feel stronger, you do better in your fights, if you know you got people supporting you, you're going to be, good chance you're going to be more successful. And it's not going to seem as bad, but especially if God is on your side and God is supporting you, right? So verse 4, I cried aloud to the Lord and he answered me from his holy hill. So, that's the confession. He complains, hey, he vents, he's like, God, I got a problem here, but hey, you're God, you are my glory, you're the one that defends me and protects me. And so he doesn't stay in that place of complaining. We love to complain and complain, and it's like, it just builds, right? But at some point, what do you do about the complaint? What do you do to stop the issue that you're complaining about? Or are you, right? Well, David is. And David's thing is to seek God in this. He loves his children. He doesn't want to kill his son, but he doesn't want to have to deal with all the crap either. And he himself doesn't want to die. So, but again, he cried out to God and God answered him. Verse 5, I lay down and slept. I woke again, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of many thousands of people who have set themselves against me all around. So no matter how bad it gets, if you're right with God, God is going to see you through whatever the issue. And if that is the case, then you should be able to rest. And that's what David's saying here. He's not tossing and turning every single night. He's not, he's not having trouble sleeping. Why? Because he knows that God's got this, right? God's in charge. God's the one with all the power. So God has got it and will take care of him. So he's not going to be afraid. He's going to go get some rest. He's going to sleep. When you when you have problems and you have issues, it's stress. Stress inflicts a lot of stress upon the body. Um, you burn a lot more nutrients. That's why people under heavy amounts of stress lose weight. There's, it breaks your body down too, though, at the same time. So when you're under heavy amounts of stress, it's not a good, healthy thing to have, and then you can't sleep on top of that, right? But even through this stressful situation of running from his son and his army, he is able to go to God and rest in God, and you need rest. You've got to be able to sleep. If you're grieving, if you're under stress, if you've got anything going on, you've got to be able to get some sleep. If you can get a good night's sleep, you can wake up the next day with a fresh mind and better able to evaluate the situation and better able to deal with it. The less sleep you get, the more stressed you are, the easier you are to manipulate and control. And so you're able to keep a calm head if you can get some rest. And because David has God on his side, he's able to get rest. And that's, we need to be able to rest in the Lord. And he, it's like, kind of compare and contrast this with the Israelites leaving Egypt and going to the Promised Land. So initially, God takes them in a straight line right across the wilderness, right through the desert, to the land of Canaan. And of course, the spies say, "Oh, we can't do it." But then Joshua and Caleb are like, "Yeah, we can." But then, no, we're not going to do it. So God had them walk around in circles for 40 years, right? They had just come out of Egypt and seen all the plagues. They had the pillar of smoke by day, the fire by night, taking them straight across the wilderness. And then they're going to sit there and say, "We can't trust in the Lord," right? They that quickly they forgot what God had done for them, was what God is capable of doing. And there was even a couple instances of defeating enemies going through the desert, right? But still, they're like, "Oh, no, we can't do this. We can't do this." So David doesn't fall into that trap. He doesn't fall into that pit. He doesn't sit there and go, "Oh, God, I'm dead. I'm going to die. Yeah, how are you going to let me do this? I can't," no. God, you're my Savior. You're my glory. You're my shield. And so David remembers all those times that God carried him through, leading up to becoming king. Excuse me. And, so we don't need to lose sight of what God has already done for us when we get into situations. And we need to be able to say, "You know what? God's got me. I know. I lost my job, changed jobs last year, lost that job here recently. Was a little concerned, was looking at the economy's not all that great. But at the same time, I wasn't overly stressing about it. I wasn't sitting there laying awake at night. I did have one night I had trouble sleeping, but overall as a whole, I knew and remembered that God was going to take care of me and my family. And sure enough, I was able to go back to work at my old job, actually. My old job allowed me to come back. So I was blessed in that regard. And, so until I figure out what to do from there, but, again, God provided work for me. And, but when I was going through that and I'd lost my job and it's like, "Oh, what do we do? What do we do?" No, we trust God. Still get out and put out my application, still get out and, and talk to me, touch base with my contacts, but still relied on God. All the bills have been paid so far, so it's not like we're tight on money, but we're not going without. But you get in those tight, stressful struggles and situations. Now, hopefully, I pray they're not life and death like this is. If Absalom would have caught David, he would have killed him, kind of thing. Potentially. And even if he hadn't killed David directly, he would have killed all his servants, and it would have been a big bloodbath, and it would have been a big problem. And then David would have definitely had to have done something with Absalom that he didn't want to do. So then, you get down to verses 7 and 8, right? And so, so you complain, confide in God, as Matthew Henry came up with these divisions, although the titles for these divisions, but I mean, this is basically correct. You can call it whatever you want, but the confession, verses 3 and 4 there, that God is God and that He's the one in charge and everything. And then you're gonna, David remembers what God has done for him already, and so then David goes from, so he complains, he confesses, he remembers, and I'm using my own words here now. And then you get to verses 7 and 8, and based on all of David's previous experience, you know what? God's got this. I'm going to be victorious because of God, right? So verse 7, arise, O Lord, save me, O my God. For you strike all my enemies on the cheek, you break the teeth of the wicked. Whew. Well, if you get hit right in there, there's a good chance. And if God's doing it, for sure. The point is, it's not so much the violent act. It's the imagery. But the point is God's going to go in and fight the battles for David. And so verse 8, salvation belongs to the Lord, your blessing be on your people. So, again, he complains to God about his problem. He confesses the goodness of God based on remembering past events, and then he triumphs, right? And so, it's like, God, I got this problem, but you're good, and I know that it's all going to work out the way you want it to work out, and you're going to care for your anointed, you're going to bless your people. So, you have this kind of roller coaster ride, but you start out in despair, complaining, and you end up giving God the glory for the triumph that you anticipate because God is faithful and God keeps His promises. So all the stuff we're dealing with, everything we're going through, I know we love to truncate this verse and just, all things work together for good. But all things work together for good for the people who love God and are called according to His purpose. That's David. David was called to be king of Israel. David was called to continue the bloodline that would lead us to Christ. His son, as prophetic term, the son of David, is something that Jesus claimed, rightfully so. And so he is able to say, all this is going to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to purpose. So this is a man after God's own heart who is fulfilling God's purpose. Now, obviously, he had problems and issues all throughout his life, all stemming from his tryst with Bathsheba. I mean, honestly, that really was kind of the thing that snowballed and led up to this situation, where his son Absalom is staging a coup, trying to kill him, trying to take the throne. All because he took revenge on Amnon. He wasn't supposed to, but he took revenge on Amnon for raping, for violating his sister Tamar. It's almost like Washington, D.C., maybe. I don't know. But political intrigue and just weirdo stuff going on. But that's the whole point of this psalm, and a great many psalms, is you can rely on God. Confess your issues, complain to God what your problems are, but don't stay in the complaint mode. We love to complain, and we love to just constantly, and I complain about things, I do, but there is a certain point at which you've got to take a step back from the complaint and go, is it me? Is it somebody else? Is it really even worth complaining about? Because it might just be the nature of things. You get it at work, right? There's just certain things you got to do. Well, I can't believe I got to do that. Well, it's the job. There's no point in complaining about that. That's not the same thing. Whereas, if you've got people trying to harm you, and you're going to God saying, hey, I need protection. God, help me out here. show me a way to deal with this and get out of the situation, because I know that you're a good God that blesses his his followers, his people. And so that's what David runs through. And we all deal with stress, and we all deal with issues, and we all deal with these kind of things. We have something out there that we feel like is a big problem. Take it to God. That's when David tried to take things into his own hands when he was running from Saul. He made himself out to be a crazy whack job guy, drooling all over the place, and he's trying to carry around Goliath's sword, and he's got Goliath's head in a bag in one hand and Goliath's sword in the other. And he was causing problems for himself because he was doing it his own way. And he learned a lot from that to do it God's way and to let God handle things. So when he's running from Absalom here, he's like, hey, God, need some help. But then he remembers that even when he had trouble asking for help to begin with, that God was with him, right? Because he's God's anointed. So we should be able to read something like this and come away with this going, you know what? I can go to God with my problems because God's going to help me. Now, it may not be an immediate thing. It may be just that we need to vent. And if you can vent, it helps you think clearer. Now, that's not to say God doesn't help and that God's not involved. Sometimes praying to God and actually vocalizing these things, our issues, helps us get them into a clearer picture that we're able to see. And God might even reveal something to you that you didn't really catch to begin with. And then you're able to actually deal with the problem. It's going to look a little different for everybody. But God is our fortress. God is our, place to be protected, and he's going to bless his people, just like he blessed David. So if you've got a problem, if you've got an issue, Ghostbusters ain't gonna fix it, but God could. And I'm not gonna say God will, because I don't know what the issue is, and it may not be a godly issue. It may not be a good and proper, rightful thing that you're dealing with, and you're wanting somebody to take revenge on your enemies. But is it a godly thing? That's kind of the issue. It's not to say that you don't go to God about it, but if you're really truly seeking God, he's going to reveal to you your heart for you to be able to figure out, do I really want to handle this in a godly way, or am I looking to do it my way? Which is, not always the best way to do it. David tried to do it his own way. Didn't work out for him. So what did he do? Trust in the Lord. So remember, take that away from this psalm, that you can go and take your problems to God, seek his guidance. If he hasn't done anything for you before that you know of, now maybe it's a time to trust him to be able to get you through this situation. And then you can be like David and remember. So when you do have another issue, you go, oh God, this is going on. I got these problems. But you're good, God, because the last time you helped me with my problems, right? We all should be able to say that. And, but you got to give God a chance. You've got to give God the opportunity to work in your life. And as we talked about this morning at Brotherhood Breakfast, sheepdog breakfast, as I like to call it. It may not necessarily be immediate. It might in some circumstances, but overall it may not be an immediate thing. It may happen over the next month. But again, take it to God. Confess to God. Confide in God. Complain to him. But remember that he's good. And that if you're truly in your heart seeking his help, that he's going to give it to you. It may not look exactly the way you want it to, but he's going to help you if you reach out to him. So, I'm going to wrap this up. Hopefully you're not watching the Olympics. I don't have time to get into all that mess. Absolutely disgusting. But be praying for those people. Be praying for the guy who came up with all that garbage. And be praying for your neighbors. Pray for yourself. Let's pray that we are fixed so that we are able to take God's guidance in how to live our lives, that the world will then be fixed. It's going to start with you. Started with David, and he started with himself and recognized his own issues and his own problems, and he took it to God, and he trusted in God to fix them. So, when you're out there making disciples, trust God, and you'll be blessed. So I'll see you next time.